and it's 90 days where we help rewire your mindset around alcohol. In 2023, the University of Washington and the University of Florida conducted a joint scientific study on our Project 90 stop drinking process, the result of which was a 98% reduction in drinking. So participants who went in there, 98% reduction in drinking. Now, again, we're not comparing apples to apples here. It's slightly different because the 7% success rate of AA is based over the course of a year, whereas the 98% success rate of our program is based over 90 days, right? So it's 4 times less duration of time. But still, even accounting for that, that is a huge discrepancy. Like, that's a monster difference.
James, talk to me about why, in your opinion, everybody should consider living an alcohol-free lifestyle.
If you're a high performer, or you at least consider yourself one, being alcohol-free is the greatest unfair advantage that I think a business owner, an executive, or anyone who strives to be a high performer can have. I haven't drunk since 2010, and I've had a life with alcohol and a life without, and I can tell you without has generated me just so many riches, at least financially. Uh, but more importantly than that, just an overall fulfilling feeling, fulfillment. It's not even happiness. Like, the difference between happiness and fulfillment, happiness can be fleeting, whereas fulfillment is more this kind of, it's like compound interest, maybe, like it starts off kind of slow, and then over time, you start to just have this overall feeling that life's pretty good. And it doesn't require these big spikes of dopamine, like the 4th of July fireworks, or doing drugs, or I don't know, accomplishing a big feat. And then you have this kind of lull. Fulfillment for me is like just this overall feeling of wellness and happiness that kind of just lasts over many years, and certainly in decades. So yeah, go alcohol free is what I prescribe to solve many of our challenges.
Yeah, and I love the language there, and I'm sure it's intentional in how you even phrase some of these things. I agree with fulfillment over happiness. I don't think happiness is something that we should really strive for, to be a byproduct of really living a purposeful, driven, fulfilled life. But when it comes to alcohol free versus maybe sobriety, which is sobriety is going to be kind of language that maybe other people will talk about in this space. Maybe that's what people think that they need to get to, is I need to be sober of alcohol. What is alcohol free kind of in the way that you talk about it? What makes it different from maybe living just a sober life?
Yeah. Sober, sobriety, alcoholic, all of these terms are dark and heavy and limiting. And for me, they imply that under normal circumstances, you would drink, but you can't because you've got a problem. Whereas alcohol free to me is you are choosing a lifestyle. Like, the name of my organization is Alcohol Free Lifestyle. And those 3 words were very strategically chosen when I started this company all the way back in 2015. Alcohol free and lifestyle. So it's not sobriety, it's not being sober, it's not surrendering to a higher power, it's not saying I have a disease, it's not having to do a 12-step program, it's not having to go to rehab, it's not being in recovery. We don't use that terminology inside our organization, and we encourage and invite our clients who are with us to we help them stop drinking, we invite them not to use that language. We suggest always be choosing what you want as opposed to trying to avoid what you don't want.
I love it, man. And I agree a 100%, not a whole 100, because there's nothing less than 100. But alcohol free, like we talk about in our work, helping men become porn free. And I've actually debated changing. So our company is called Rebuilt Recovery, but I'm actually kind of at this crossroads right now where, like, do I need to make a rebrand and remove the word recovery? Because for me, it's very similar in kind of the things that we talk about. It's this identity transformation, and our identity is rooted in the words that we use. So what role do you see maybe people's identity playing in either keeping them stuck, and how important is it for us to kind of transcend any old identities to truly live alcohol free?
Yeah, I'm in alignment with your thinking there about the word recovery and addiction and alcoholic. All of these words are just having us feel stuck, having us be stuck, and stepping into an identity that I would submit isn't even real, doesn't even exist. It's just we've lazily thrown around this term alcoholic for decades, mistakenly believing that anyone who's drinks too much and seemingly has a drinking problem in the moment is therefore an alcoholic. It's not true. Would you be surprised to learn, Frank, that in actual fact, the medical community has not used the term alcoholic for the past 7 years? It's now alcohol use disorder. And yet you see it on every television show and every movie, every news report talking about alcoholics, alcoholics, alcoholics. Alcoholics don't exist. It's just people who are drinking too much in the moment, and there are consequences. But when you start walking around saying, I'm in recovery, or I'm sober, or I'm an alcoholic, it implies that you have some genetic disease, or that's who you are, and you can't change anything. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You can change your lifestyle, you can change your habits, and you don't need to be walking around saying, I am this and I am that, because it keeps you stuck. In fact, the National Institute of uh, the National Institute of Alcohol and Alcoholism, and strangely enough, they actually still use the word alcoholic and alcoholism in its name because it was created in the late 1970s, and so they just figured it was too much of a rebrand to remove those words. So they've kept it the way it is. They now don't use the word alcoholics except in their actual name, right? Their organizational name, but they say that, and they've done research to suggest this, that if your parents or grandparents had what is now referred to as an alcohol use disorder, it is true that you will have a 50% increased chance of experiencing what we now know as being an alcohol use disorder. Now, that is true based on genetics, right? However, while it's not your fault that you may have that 50% increased chance of developing an alcohol use disorder, it is now your responsibility to be able to stop that, and you can. And this is what's commonly referred to as epigenetics. And epigenetics means we can change the expression of our genes. Now, we can't change the genetic code, we can't change the genetic sequence. Right? Just cannot stop that. But we can change the expression of the genes. And the way that we change the expressions is with sunlight, nutrition, mobility, exercise, conscious communication, personal development, grounding, um, focusing on appreciation instead of expectation. All of these things can reduce our cravings for alcohol or porn or shopping or love, and can just enable us to live much more pleasant and enjoyable lives, which completely um, extinguish the desire to get something to temporarily numb us. So, all of that is to say, I invite you, if you're listening to this and you're walking around calling yourself an alcoholic, or you're saying that you're in recovery, challenge that notion. You're perfect as you are. You just have something temporarily in your way that is preventing that perfection from being unleashed.
I love that, man. In everything that you're sharing here, I've mentioned multiple times. It's so congruent, I think, with our message and our approach and how I see. I don't want to use the word recovery now because you're kind of challenging me here to stop using recovery, but how I see the work that we do. You know, so many men keep this victim mindset. They're trying to stop this behavior versus saying, okay, how do I live kind of without it? When it comes to the alcohol, though, I mean, it plays such a big part in social communities, in celebrations, just in society and in culture. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen with men or people out there in general that buy into your message but are holding on to some of these untruths about the role that alcohol needs to play in their lives?
Well, look, I haven't drunk since 2010, and nobody would ever accuse me of being dull or boring. Uh, Let me just give you an example. I know that your listeners are mostly, if not all, men. Before I stopped drinking alcohol, I went to the Playboy Mansion in Holmby Hills in California, and I went there for a big party, and all the celebrities were there. Pamela Anderson was there. I met her, and the Hollywood actor Owen Wilson, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, the wrestler, and one of the Backstreet Boys or one of the NSYNC guys was there. I can't remember who it was. And of course, Hugh Hefner and all the playmates. And I had a wonderful time. And I drank alcohol, and I got really drunk, and I actually got thrown out because I jumped in the grotto with a friend of mine, and you weren't supposed to be swimming in the grotto on this particular party, right? It was actually a corporate event. It was the launch of a cable television channel called Spike TV, and so it was more of a corporate crowd, even though it was in this kind of hedonistic place of the Playboy Mansion. Now, I had a wonderful time, and I got drunk, and I got thrown out, and I got thrown out a few hours before I wanted to get thrown out, right? So even though I looked back and I went, "Hey, that's a pretty cool story. I got thrown out of the Playboy Mansion." I also had a shocking hangover for 3 days, and I was kind of pissed that I missed the last 3 hours of the event, right? Fast forward to some years later, when at this stage, I think I was 7 or 8 years alcohol free. So it must have been 2017, 2018. I got invited to go back to the Playboy Mansion, this time alcohol free. And I had a far more enjoyable time this time around not drinking alcohol. I was dancing on tables with playmates. I was high-fiving people. I was like drinking soda water ice and a piece of lime. I got into conversations with playmates and attractive women. I met interesting people. And I remembered all of it. And I was clear and I was engaged. And I was literally sipping soda water ice and a piece of lime all night. Now, if I can have a wonderful time and people can experience me as being a wonderful, fun guy, being alcohol free, then I would submit that every one of your listeners right now who's worried that they're not going to be not going to be able to have a fun time, or that people are going to think that they're dull or interesting, is just preposterous. It's a ridiculous notion. You do not need the alcohol to create a bond with your friends or to be part of a tribe. You just get to create a bond with your friends and be part of a tribe. And you can do that a million different ways that do not involve drinking attractively packaged poison. It's just your whole life, you've been indoctrinated into this idea, this ridiculous idea that you need to drink this poison in order to like smile and have fun and create mateship and create this social circle. BS. It's preposterous. And I get why we feel this way. I get it, and I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. First of all, is the obvious way, which is social conditioning, cultural conditioning. It's just you look everywhere and people are offering you a drink and they're doing it with a smile on their face. In our stop drinking program, we call those folks smiling assassins because they're smiling at you as they offer you a beer or a wine. They're going, "Hey, shall we have some drinks? Hey, can I get you a wine? Hey, you want a beer?" And they mean pretty well. They've got good intentions, but nevertheless, they're offering you poison in an attractive bottle, right? And this has been going on for years and decades. So I get why your listener is probably going, "Oh, I can't drink like everyone else is drinking. I'm going to be the odd one out." So I get it. Second reason why we feel so nervous or uncomfortable about the idea of stopping drinking is because back when we were cavemen and cave women, we used to roam the earth in tribes of about 160, right? There's this famous tribe concept called Dunbar's tribe, which shows that we used to be in 160 people 160 people tribes. Now, if you got kicked out of that 160 person tribe, it was certain death back then because the other bear or the rival tribesman would kill you, the wolf would eat you. You had no social support. It was death, right? But guess what? Today in 2024, if you get kicked out of a tribe, you just join another tribe. We've got food, we've got shelter. We're not being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger. We're not supposed to murder each other anymore. There are rules around that. Like we've evolved as a species. And the other thing is that you can choose to leave the tribe and just join another tribe. You can choose to leave the tribe of alcohol is necessary for social engagement and go and join this tribe over here, of which I'm a big cheerleader of let's have the most fun being alcohol free.
I love what Chris Williamson, podcaster, Modern Wisdom, said. I've heard him share this a couple times. He went, I think, 1,000+ days completely alcohol free after living a life as club promoter, kind of party boy lifestyle. And he shared this on a podcast. Like, if you need alcohol to enjoy being with your friends, it's a sign that you probably need new friends. right? It's like, yeah, it could be there, if you want to, but if like every time you're with these people to even enjoy being around them, like you need to be intoxicated, there's probably probably time to look for a better circle. Chris has also said that alcohol is probably the only drug in the world that if you tell people that you're trying to quit or you're off of it, that they're going to look at you like they're weird or like you're weird, right? So I guess when you came out, like, did you have a struggle with people? Because I'm sure you had a past life, right? Like there was like the old James, the party boy, like the people that you would drink with. When you began to kind of live this alcohol-free lifestyle, like how did you navigate? Did you find that new tribe? Was that kind of your approach, or how did you kind of deal with maybe some of the social pressures?
Well, I grew up in Australia, where drinking is very much the norm and culturally accepted. And I was a socially acceptable drinker in that I would have 2 or 3 drinks most nights of the week. And on weekends and some weeknights, I might get drunk. And I didn't get a DUI. I didn't get arrested. I didn't hit rock bottom. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I was drinking too much. And I did it from age 17 until when I stopped at age 35. Right. And the consequences of that were that I put on a heck of a lot of weight. I was sleeping poorly. I was irritable, stressed. I was very mediocre. I was like a 6 out of 10 in all of my life. And my catalyst for stopping was I woke up one morning. I was in Austin, Texas at the 2010 annual South by Southwest Festival. And I'd had 2 Bombay Sapphire gin and tonics the night before. And I woke up and I was just like, oh, I just feel like shit. I feel like average. Like, what am I doing? This isn't life. Like, and again, I wasn't rock bottom. I was just blah. So I committed to 30 days alcohol free in that moment just to see what would happen. My intention at the time was just to go 30 days without drinking. Now, to answer your question, what happened initially? Initially, I was socially awkward about it, and I was kind of not telling people that I wasn't drinking. Then, when I left Austin, I left that South by Southwest festival. I went back to LA where I was living at the time. I went to the Jones Bar on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood with my 2 good friends, Tom and Zach, and I told them I wasn't drinking. Anyway, I drank soda water and ice and a piece of lime while they had a wine or a scotch or whatever they were drinking. And then Zach said, "Okay, it's my round." So he goes to the bar and he comes back and he gives me what I thought was my soda water, right? Because I had said, "Give me a soda water." And as I went to put it to my lips and to sip this soda water, I kind of looked at him and he had this guilty grin on his face. And I said to him, "Did you put vodka in this?" And he went, "Yeah, I did." And I just said to him in the most crass and coarse Aussie slang, I said, "You wanker." And, uh, and I put the drink back, and that was a really eye-opening experience for me to see that even my 2 best friends at the time were still trying to get me to drink. I was like, "What is going on in the world?" Like, surely they should be supporting me that I'm not drinking, and I've announced that I'm not drinking for these 30 days. Surely they should be trying to help me get to that goal as opposed to sneaking alcohol in my drink. So that was an eye-opening experience. I also felt really awkward. I asked this woman out on a date. I was a single man at the time, this woman, Andrea. And I got to the bar. It was actually back at the Jones bar, same bar. Um, and I got there 15 minutes before the date was due to start. And I'd made a deal with the bartender. And I said, "Look, I got this date coming. Uh, when I order a vodka and soda for me, can you just make it a soda for me because I'm not drinking?" And he goes, "Yeah, I got you. No worries." Anyway, Andrea came. We had this date. She drank wine. I ordered a vodka soda. The bartender kind of gave me the wink and just let me drink soda. So I tricked her during our first date into believing that I was drinking alcohol. Unfortunately, a few weeks later, we were at the annual, what's it called? What's that music festival? Coachella. We were at Coachella and one of her friends says, "Oh, James, I'm going to the bar. Do you want me to get you a beer or a drink?" I said, "Oh, no, thanks. I haven't actually drunk in like 3 or 4 weeks, so I'm good. Soda water." And Andrea, who was my date, this was like our third date, then goes, "Yeah, you have. You drank. You drank on our first date." And I very sheepishly looked at her and was like, "Oh, actually, no, I wasn't. I was just drinking soda water." She said, "Wait, so you, so you tricked me? So you lied to me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I was just feeling a bit awkward." She was really pissed. So pissed, in fact, that we had an energetic break and we didn't date, after the Coachella thing. It was just too much of an energetic break for her. So that was fascinating as well. It was like I tell people I'm not drinking and they try to get me to drink, and then I lie about not drinking, and that comes back and bites me on the ass as well. So from that point on, I just said, "You know what? I'm just gonna announce that I'm alcohol free. I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna have a good time. I'm gonna smile and joke and laugh around." And that's it. That's what I'm gonna do. And so since then, since that first 30 days, it's just been increasingly easy to just tell people I'm alcohol free, do it with a smile on my face, and no one really cares.
Just own it, man. Just own it. Here, I thought we were going to have a conversation around alcohol-free lifestyle, neuroplasticity, rewiring your brain, and we undercut the guys here with some dating advice. Right? Never lie to a woman on a first date. The underlying lesson here today for you fellows out there is living truth. And I think that's for me, that's a core message that we try to share with our guys is own your struggles. Like don't be afraid to talk about the things that you're trying to improve upon in your life, right? Like ours is a little bit more sensitive. Not a lot of people are. It's growing in its acceptance of the conversation of I'm trying to get off of porn. I realize it's got very harmful, damaging effects to me. Alcohol is light years ahead of that, though, in the acceptance of at least talking about it socially. So it was 2010 for you, and then life took off immediately. Like, was it literally like a gas fuel into the rocket, and how did things kind of change? Where were you before, maybe kind of professionally? Because from what it sounded like is you were even kind of doing well. I mean, South by Southwest, like that's an area of entrepreneurs, like doing well previously. So how did things really kind of begin to take off for you?
Pre 2010, I was a print journalist. So I was actually living in Hollywood, California, interviewing movie stars and movie producers and directors for magazines and newspapers all over the world. So I would get invited to the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, what they call a movie junket, and I would interview Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Jennifer Aniston, Ben Stiller, Robert Downey Jr., Jerry Bruckheimer, like Tom Cruise, all the world's top movie stars. They would make available to me to interview them, and then as a consequence of that, the movie studios would also try to befriend me and suck up to me, so I would write nice reviews about their films. They'd invite me to Hollywood movie parties, So I went to the MTV Movie Awards, as I referenced. I went to the Playboy Mansion. I went to the Grammys. I went to the Oscars. I went to Elton John's post Oscars party at the Pacific Design Center. I went to Golden Globes and met people like Elon Musk and Harvey Weinstein at the time, who's now doing prison time. But, like these studios would be sucking up to me, and I would absolutely revel in it. I mean, I was an Australian living in America, going to all these parties with open bars and going crazy and loving it. And I also realized that the Americans loved the fact that I was a big drinking, funny Australian because they all imagined me being like the Crocodile Dundee, Mick Dundee kind of character, the larrikin Australian. And only years later after I stopped drinking did I in hindsight realize, wow, a lot of my drinking was me trying to live into this expectation of a character that Americans had of me. And so it was like, who am I if I'm not the larrikin drinking Australian? Then I'm just an Australian in America who are a dime a dozen. And because I was drinking big and I was making jokes like, "Oh, I was drunk last night," they'd all go, "Ha, ha, ha, ha." Or I was at the bar, "Come on, mate, let's go and have a drink." And they're like, "Oh, look at this Australian guy who's saying, mate, oh, this is amazing." And because we're drinking this poison with big smiles on our face. I'm stepping into this character. I'm embodying this character. So I did okay. Like I was doing all right in my career as a Hollywood correspondent. I was doing pretty good, but not great. All right. I was like a 6 out of 10. I was earning, I was all right. I was earning like a six-figure wage, not anything amazing. Then when I stopped drinking alcohol, miraculously, all these opportunities fell into my lap, including an opportunity to audition to become a sports center anchor on ESPN. And I was introduced to this producer, and I flew over to Bristol, Connecticut, where ESPN is based out of, and this is about 3 months into me not drinking, and I just decided I'm gonna get this job. I'm gonna be an Australian Sports Center anchor in America. I'm just gonna do it, and I credit being alcohol-free and the clarity and the focus and the drive and the strategy that I had for really helping me get that gig, and they gave me the gig to my bewilderment, and I became a Sports Center anchor on ESPN for 2 years, from 2010 to 2012. I wouldn't have got that job if I had been drinking. No way. No chance in hell. Because I would have been tired, lethargic, filled with self-doubt, and not gone for it. And candidly, the opportunity wouldn't have even fallen in my lap. But because I was alcohol free, I went for it and I got it. And then that really like was just a dream come true to host the most iconic sports television news show in the world, arguably. Do it in America as I'm an Australian. I'm like, alcohol free is pretty damn good.
That's epic, man. I remember they had a competition, man, early 2000s. I was too young at the time to try out for it, but I was like, if they keep this thing going, like I'm gonna try out one day. It was called Dream Job. I don't know if you remember it. And they ended up like they did a series of tests, and they ended up landing. Like one guy got landed a job. I don't remember his name, and then he got to like play a game for his salary. He ended up making like 900 grand that first year, which I didn't realize like anchors were making that type of money. I was like, holy shit! Like I can talk about sports and I can make almost $1 million. Like that's what I'm doing. Like for an athlete like myself, man, like Sports Center, like ESPN, like back in the day, like it sounds like you were there during kind of like the golden era too. Like, you know, the SVPs, the Van Pelts, the Stuart Scotts, all like, I mean, the Hall of Famers of sports broadcasting for sure, man. That's awesome. I didn't know that about your story. So, okay. So you transition out of the print media, things start to take off for you. 2010 though, prior to that is when you start to live alcohol free. I think you said you launched your company Alcohol Free Lifestyle in 2015. What was the genesis there? Like why, after being in the media, step into this coaching space?
Yeah, so I was at ESPN and I was there from 2010 to 2012. And as good as that job was, I got paid very handsomely. I had a Z level of fame, you could say, because people would recognize me. I was hanging out with Scott Van Pelt and Stuart Scott. You know, like I would often run into them in the makeup chair before we'd go on live and we'd just talk to each other and stuff. At the end of the day, though, it was still a corporate America job. Like ESPN's owned by Disney. You still got to clock in at a certain time. You still got to clock out at a certain time. All the sport, most of the major sport takes place on weekends. So you're working a lot of weekends and you're living in Bristol, Connecticut, which is social suicide if you're a single guy, right? Like, yeah, you get to talk about sports, you get to be on TV, but it's pretty isolating out there. It's not New York City, which is 2 hours away. It's Bristol, Connecticut. And I just realized that I really wanted to have location independence and I wanted to be a business owner and entrepreneur and control my value, control my financial life while traveling the world. So I made a strategic choice in the summer of 2012 to resign from ESPN to go and pursue entrepreneurship. People thought I was crazy. What are you doing? You got this amazing ESPN corporate America job. You should be so lucky. You used to get paid really well. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But you know what? I was alcohol free, had this clarity and focus. And I'm like, I'm destined for bigger things. And I want to control my own destiny, my own time, my own finances. I'm going to go for it. Now, I'd love to tell you that almost immediately I struck gold and I became a millionaire, a multimillionaire overnight, but that is not what actually happened. Candidly, I really struggled for the next 2 years until 2014. And I think I generated a paltry $30,000 in income for myself as an entrepreneur in the first 2 years. But I learned. I went to conferences, I studied, I tried things, I failed. Then finally, what I ended up doing was I hired a mentor, a business mentor, and I paid him $25,000 to mentor me for the year. And it was amazing. And I learned everything about coaching, online marketing, and then it was just the marriage of my skills as a journalist and an interviewer with this passion that I had for helping people reduce or stop drinking alcohol. Because by that stage, I'd been 4 or 5 years alcohol free. And I created this little program called the 30-Day No Alcohol Challenge, which still exists to this day at 30daynoalcoholchallenge.com. And I threw it up there in 2015, started selling it for $67, and people started buying it. And so I'm like, okay, great. Now I'm off to the races here. And where my life really took off was that, because now I'm teaching people what I have learned. I'm coaching people on how to live alcohol free and have fun, and I'm getting paid to do it. Fast forward to today, 2024, it's now a movement. Like, candidly, it's a movement. Like, there's people now whose lives have completely transformed because they've gone alcohol free. And I get to support them with that. And I get to be paid handsomely for it, which is great. And I think I said this the other day. I think I've reached what most people would describe as entrepreneurial utopia. And entrepreneurial utopia is that you make a ton of money helping a ton of people with a ton of their problems. That is entrepreneurial utopia. And so, I have to credit that for being alcohol free. It's a lifestyle. I just coach my lifestyle. It seems to be transformative for those who subscribe or to this way of living, who are in alignment with that, and it's very fulfilling.
I love that, man. What role did the previous media experience, interviewing people? I often say coaching is really just being a great interviewer. Like you kind of help you ask people questions to really help them reveal the answers to themselves. But you kind of got to know the answer before you can ask them the question. Oftentimes in an interview, you need to do something very similar, unless you're trying to kind of find something underneath the hood here a little bit. And I think that's helped me. I've done 270 plus podcast interviews, not to the level, where I'm interviewing stars and stuff. We've had some big name people here, but I definitely see my skill set growing over 4 years from doing this to then interacting with our students and clients. Have you seen kind of a similar trajectory in like harnessing those interviewing skills and leveraging them into the coaching?
Yeah, I experience you doing a great job, Frank, as well. Like you're asking great questions and probing questions that are getting me to open up and answer. And that's a great skill. And I'm so grateful that I learned the skill of being a great questioner back when I was a cadet journalist at age 17, all the way back in Australia, when I first started. And you're right, coaching is often, if not mostly, asking clients or students probing questions so they come to the answer themselves. It's not telling them what to do, it's asking them questions where they figure out what to do. So, um, certainly the skill of asking questions, of taking an interest in people and framing questions in a way that elicits interesting answers as opposed to a yes or a no answer, for example, is a skill set that is really transformative for clients and customers and listeners. Um, it's a skill set. So yeah, that I would say my journalistic questioning skills have really helped me to ask great questions of folks who are suffering or experiencing challenges with their drinking, and that opens up doors of opportunity for them to have a breakthrough and ultimately choose an alcohol-free lifestyle.
Yeah. There's be a couple different guys that are hearing this message here today, right? There's going to be the clear ones that are like they've known for a while alcohol is impairing their progress. Maybe it's been brought up in the home. Maybe they look at themselves every day, and they're kind of let down and disappointed. I'm not really living up to my potential. They know, right? They know that like they just need to make the choice. They need to make the decision. But on the other hand, there's going to be some guys that are hearing this that are crushing it, right? They're out there building the business. They got the family life at home. Kids love them. Wife loves them. Seems like sex life is even great. For him, it's like, James, man, it's like, a scotch and a cigar after a long week, right? On a Friday, Saturday night, it's not doing me any harm. Like, what do we say to that guy, though, to even begin to explore living a porn free life? I'm sorry, an alcohol free life.
Yeah. So there was a study that came out of the UK in 2022, and it was a study of 35,000 middle-aged Brits. And what the study demonstrated was that even one seemingly innocent drink per night, which is just 7 standard drinks a week, was enough to cause some level of brain degeneration. More specifically, it compromised and destroyed white and gray matter in the brain. Now, that's just one seemingly innocent drink. So the person who's now saying, "Oh, look, it's scotch at the end of the week or end of the night, it's no big deal, it's fine. Have a cigar, whatever." I would say, maybe, maybe. Or maybe that seemingly innocent drink compromises your sleep quality just enough that you wake up in the morning feeling just a little bit irritable. And because you're just a little bit irritable, you snap at your wife or your girlfriend or your kids. And now there's some strain in the relationship. And maybe just because you're a little bit more irritable, you're not as present with your kids. And your kids feel that and they experience that. And now their life is being compromised. And because you're just a little bit irritable from that seemingly innocent drink last night, you think, well, I'll just have a little pick me up just to give me a little bit more energy. So you have a croissant or a bagel, or you put a little bit of cream and sugar in your drink, or you drink a Red Bull, or you have a Gatorade with some sugar just to give you a little bit of burst. It's fine. And now, about an hour after that, you have a crash because your glucose levels are now spiked, and now you crash. And now you're a little bit tired because of that. Because you're a little bit tired, you don't pick up the phone and make that one additional sales call that you plan to make. that could have turned into a $50,000 deal. Or you say, I'll just distract myself a little bit. I'm pretty tired. Let me go scrolling through social media. And so you'd numb yourself with the social media at a time where you could have been strategically thinking about how to add another $1 million revenue to your business. And now your business just kind of drifts, just a little bit. Not noticeable in the beginning, but it sure as hell is noticeable over many months and years. And because of that, you lose some confidence. You make some poor strategic decisions, and then you come home and you're stressed and you're anxious and you go, "Oh, man, I just want to have a drink. I just want to have that scotch and cigar at the end of the day just to relax because, gee, today's been hard." And your kid's going, "Daddy, Daddy, can we play catch?" And you're like, "No, I'm too tired, son." Or your wife or your missus comes over and wants to give you a little bit of affection, and you're like, I'm going into the office. I got to work. I got stuff to do." Maybe you're going off to watch a little bit of porn. Maybe you're going to work. You're becoming a workaholic because you're trying to distract yourself. So all I would say is maybe that drink at the end of the day isn't compromising your life, but I would invite you to ponder maybe it is.
Maybe you're the frog in boiling water, right? You don't feel the immediate pain until it gets to the point where it's hot enough that you just everything blows up around you. Agree with that 100%. Uh, Sleep. You mentioned sleep there. Obviously impacting. I know in addition to alcohol free lifestyle, you have a sleep company. Did that get birthed out of like understanding the importance of sleep in the role that it plays in living alcohol free? Like, are they interconnected? The two companies.
Yeah, they are. I created the sleep company, Swanwick Sleep, same time, within months actually of creating alcohol free lifestyle. And we create these scientifically proven blue light blocking glasses, blue blockers essentially, with the orange lens and the clear lens. I'll put on a pair of my clear lens daytimes now. This is the my company name, Swanwick, and we've been around again since 2015. The idea of these is that you wear the orange lensed blue blockers in the last hour before you go to sleep. It blocks the blue light from your screens on your cell phone or on your computer or the bathroom light, kitchen light. And what that does is that it allows the body to release the natural amount of melatonin that it wants to release, which then enables you to fall asleep quicker, sleep deeper, and wake up feeling nice and refreshed. Again, I wouldn't have started that company or even have thought to if I hadn't been alcohol free. Because what happened was when I stopped drinking alcohol, I started being interested and curious about other health modalities. I started focusing on my sleep. I started focusing on muscle gain. I started focusing on nutrition. I switched to paleo eating. Someone invited me to a meditation class, which candidly I haven't kept up as a consistent practice. I do find that challenging to this day. But even just going into a few of those classes introduced me to people who were more health conscious. And so just being around more health conscious people who didn't drink or drank modestly and certainly didn't need drinking alcohol in order to create social connection really exposed me to things like blue blocking glasses, to great sleep, to great nutrition, to conscious communication, to personal development. And yeah, I created that company in 2015. We came out of the gate a million miles an hour. We did $1 million in sales in the first 12 months. We kind of are known now as the OGs on the blue blocker market. My brother Tristan and I started the company, and we've still got it to this day. It still runs. It's still there on Amazon and at swanwicksleep.com. NFL team players wear it. The New Orleans Saints, basketball, the New York Knicks, Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur in the English Premier League. Arnold Schwarzenegger wears our brand, Swannies glasses as well. None of that would have happened if I'd still been drinking. So glorious things can happen when you stop drinking alcohol. You just got to have the courage to lean into it and try it.
Yeah, I love that, guys. We'll have James's glasses linked down there below if any guys want to check that out. I'm obviously a big proponent of all these biohacks of optimizing our sleep, our recovery, everything we can use as a tool here. I think a question is going to come up though, right? Back to kind of the alcohol-free lifestyle and why we would need, you or an organization like yours. Every city, every town is going to have multiple branches, chapters of AA, right? 12 steps has been around for, 100 plus years. Bill W, pioneer in the space, right? Millions of lives been transformed. Everybody knows somebody that's a part of it here today. Like, what's the problem with just stepping into an AA and following the 12 steps?
Okay, so here's the part of our conversation where some listeners may get triggered by what I have to share. May. I'm not assuming that they will, but let's just say may. Okay. To be clear, before I answer your question, my organization, which is called Alcohol Free Lifestyle and is known affectionately as AFL, we are the exact opposite of AA, rehab, sobriety, recovery, right? The opposite. Now, I applaud the mission of AA. You asked me about AA specifically. I applaud the mission. However, I have done intense research on the effectiveness of AA. And there are repeated studies that seem to demonstrate that AA's actual success rate of people getting long term power over drinking is less than 7%. Now, it's very challenging to prove that because you've got to, interview AA people. They're you've got to determine whether they're answering truthfully or not, etc. But many studies over many years seem to suggest that the actual success rate is about 7%. Now, if the success rate of AA is 7%, that means the failure rate of AA is 93%, right? Now, by comparison, not equal comparison, and I'll explain that in a second. By comparison, our methodology at AFL, we have this methodology called Project 90, right? And it's 90 days where we help rewire your mindset around alcohol. In 2023, the University of Washington and the University of Florida conducted a joint scientific study on our Project 90 stop drinking process, the result of which was a 98% reduction in drinking. So participants who went in there, 98% reduction in drinking. Now, again, it's not we're not comparing apples to apples here. It's slightly different because the 7% success rate of AA is based over the course of a year, whereas the 98% success rate of our program is based over 90 days, right? So it's 4 times less duration of time. But still, even accounting for that, that is a huge discrepancy. Like that's a monster difference, right? Now, why is that? You asked me about AA. Here's why I think AA is incredibly ineffective for most people. It's dark, depressing. It's got you thinking about the past. You're lamenting. You're in shame. You regret. You've got to drive to a meeting, sit around a circle. You've got to say, "Hi, my name's Frank and I'm an alcoholic," when you probably don't even feel like you're an alcoholic. You're sitting next to a 17-year-old meth addict who holds up gas stations. How do you relate to that person? You can't because you're a middle aged, successful guy who takes care of his health because you're listening to the Superhuman Life podcast right now and you're focused on self development. You're trying to be better. And now you're sitting next to a bunch of people who are going, "My life sucks. I've messed up my life. Everything's terrible. Hey, everyone, throw in $1 for the coffee." Who wants to be there? Nobody really wants to be in a damn AA meeting, right? And you're going there because you feel like you have to. Then when you're in there, you've got to surrender to a higher power and say, "I'm powerless over this disease and this addiction." Bullshit for most people. Now, I absolutely acknowledge that AA has helped millions of people, if not tens of millions of people, for decades. They've done an incredible service to society by helping people. But they've also done an incredible disservice, I would submit, to most people who've tried it because it's outdated, antiquated, stuck in the past, completely undesirable and ineffective for most people, right? Our program is fun. Well, at least we make it as fun as it can be, right? It's empowering. We're inspiring people to choose what they want, not to avoid what they don't want. We're getting people in a like-minded community. Our clients are business owners, entrepreneurs, folks who are in their 30s and 40s. We don't accept meth addicts holding up gas stations. Like we've curated a like-minded community because there's this great book called The Power of Habit by Charles C. Duhigg, in which he says change becomes probable when you put like-minded people in a group with a common goal. So in Project 90, our program, we put like minded business owners, executives, successful people, affluent in many cases, articulate. We put them in a group with a common goal of rewiring their mindset around alcohol, and we make it fun and collaborative and empowering. That is why I submit we have a 98% reduction in drinking success rate versus something like AA, which doesn't. That's my answer.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to trigger, or it shouldn't trigger, at least any of our regular listeners. Now, if somebody's finding the episode for the first time, doesn't know who Coach Frank is, doesn't know what Rebuild Recovery's mission is about, that might have kind of perked them up a little bit. But for the guys that have been here for a while, everything you shared there runs parallel with everything I've talked about, why these same type of approaches in porn recovery won't work. It's a victim mindset. It's a limiting belief system. It's absent of real growth towards a future common goal. It's absent of a real supportive, like-minded community. We've done the same thing. Like, there is a qualifying application-based process. We have a few tiers of programs that we can get people into. Our highest, obviously, tiers for the guys that are, doing better well financially, and they're going to get more intimate touch with me. They're going to get, more of a curated kind of like-minded group of community. More masterminding kind of takes place in there. But there's going to be this curation where, like you said, we're not going to allow the guy that's a sexual predator, and we're not going to allow the guy that's watching pedophilic pornography, right? That's not our community. We want the guys that are driven, want more, but have this vice in their life, and they're like, we're going to help you live free of that. So I loved all that, and I support 100% of it. We talked about, like, your goal is helping them over the course of 90 days kind of like rewire their mindsets, which I'm thinking is probably the relationship that they hold with pornography. Obviously, getting into the 90-day program is the best place to go if these guys are, looking to kind of take some action here. But for somebody that is hearing this conversation, they're like, James, you're opening my eyes up, man. I am that one drink a night type of guy. Or, hey, man, you know what? I'm willing to test this out, man. Your story resonates with me. I'm willing to see what 90 days of my life absent of alcohol can look like. What's the first step or first two steps that the guys can take after hearing this today to begin working towards rewiring their mindset or their relationship with alcohol?
Well, a couple places you can find me just with free resources. I have this podcast called Alcohol Free Lifestyle Podcast. You can find it in Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Website is alcoholfreelifestyle.com. You can go there and check out. There's some free training videos. In fact, if you go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/training, there's a free training video there as well. So at least do that. Like, listen to a few of the episodes on my podcast, because that'll help to get you in the conversation and thinking and about and pondering this. Okay. Um, Even if you don't do that, like, because I don't want this just to be a big kind of marketing advertising push for me and my services. So let's just say that you're like, yeah, I like this James guy, he's pretty cool, but no, I'm going to go and do this on my own. Then what I would suggest is get a group of guys together to do this, and get like-minded guys together and create a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group or whatever, and have a start date and try to get to at least 90 days together. Not 30 days, because when you do 30 days, you're kind of waiting for day 30. And what are you going to do on day 30? Celebrate with a drink, right? And whereas 90 days, you've broken the habit, you've experienced enough change now. Your skin looks better, you're sleeping better, you're having sex better, you're more present. All of these things can change noticeably over 90 days, whereas 30 days, you're kind of like, oh, I just got to get to 30 days. So if you don't do anything with, let's just say, with professional services, get a bunch of like-minded guys together in a Telegram or WhatsApp group and support each other and just go for it, right? While listening to podcast episodes or watching YouTube videos on how to stop drinking, and practicing good nutrition and conscious communication, because it's that accountability that's really, really important. I would submit getting the accountability plus coaching, plus having it be fun, plus the community. And then also, I would say, having skin in the game. Candidly, our stop drinking program is thousands of dollars. And we do that for many reasons, but most importantly is because if something's free, you don't pay attention. But when you pay attention, right? So that skin in the game is a huge piece of it. You want to put something down that says, I'm committed to this. It's a symbol of seriousness, Frank, right? It's like, I am committing to this thing, and I'm going to see it through until I am complete. Not near enough is good enough. Not I drank once on day 17, so that hardly really counts. No, it's like you're alcohol free for at least 90 days with coaching, with accountability, having it being fun, with skin in the game that calls you to a higher level. The other thing I would just say, even if you don't do that, even if you don't get a bunch of guys together and do it yourself, and you're just going to do it on your own because I don't know, maybe you're stubborn or maybe you just believe that you can. That is, before you go out, just look yourself in the mirror and just say, I'm going to have the most fun tonight while drinking soda water, ice, and a piece of lime. I'm going to be the most engaging. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to dance on tables. I'm going to introduce people. I'm just going to love living this alcohol free lifestyle. And just say it to yourself and then go out there and embody that and do that. And you will be shocked at how little people care that you're not drinking and how easy it actually is in hindsight to go out there and live alcohol free if you just intentionally make that commitment.
Is the lack of or the inability to see the value in the investing in yourself in this area of your life, is that the thing that you think holds most people stuck from truly breaking free into an alcohol-free lifestyle or even a porn-free lifestyle, right? Everything is shared there: community, conscious communication, having bigger goals that you're working towards, focus on nutrition, taking care of your health, prioritizing sleep, recovery, right? It's like you're not the first person to share that. I don't think anything, outside of like your unique things that we shared here today were like ultimately groundbreaking. Like we didn't discover, anything new here today. We've recycled so many of the same things that most people already know, but yet there's still going to be this large percentage that don't succeed at the thing they say they want to do. Is it oftentimes that lack of the investing in yourself? I mean, even if it's a small amount, is that what you think holds most people back?
Yes. I struggled as an entrepreneur in 2012 to 2014, and then I invested $25,000 in a mentor, and generated like multiple seven figures subsequently. Wouldn't have done so if I hadn't have invested in the coach. I have a personal trainer 5 days a week. I use currency arbitrage. I hire a Colombian at $20 an hour who meets me virtually on my phone. I go into the gym and I just put my headphones in, and he meets me in his gym in Medellin, Colombia, wherever I am in the world. If I'm in England or the US, I pay him $20 an hour. I pay it, right? 5 days a week, $100 a week, $400 a month to get my ass in the gym. And many days I don't want to go to the gym, but because I've already paid him and I got to meet him at 8 a.m. every morning, I go there and I do it, right? That's the skin in the game. That's the paying money equals paying attention. Uh, Personal development. I did this thing called Landmark Education, Landmark Forum years ago. I think I paid $1,000 for it, for them to essentially lock me in a room for 4 days. I wanted to not be there after the day one, but I paid the $1,000, so I showed up on day two, and then I got the transformation and the breakthrough on day three. Right? It's a symbol of seriousness, and it calls you to a higher power. You don't want to be the guy who I used to be, which is getting free stuff and trying to get the free ticket to the conference from your mate who knows the owner, etc. You want to pay, right? Because it's a symbol of seriousness, and it calls you to a higher power that when it's free, or you say you can do it on your own, or I'm going to do it on my own to save money, it doesn't call you nearly as much. In many cases, it's just completely ineffective. So I say, let yourself be sold. It's like, oh, this guy's selling me, or whatever. Let yourself be sold. Invest the money, because that could be the missing link to you living an extraordinary life as opposed to an average and mediocre one.
I love that, James. I think that's a great place to end here today. We'll have alcohol free lifestyle. We'll have the free trainings. We'll have all your resources down there below. Links to Swanwick glasses. In terms of socially, guys kind of want to connect with you. Is there a best place to kind of find you on kind of the social circle? In terms of social media, like not where you're hanging out in Medellin. I'm not going to send the guys down there to find you in the clubs down in Colombia. But yeah, where to connect with you best online here?
I'm not going to be in the clubs in Medellin, Colombia. Trust me. I'll be 50 years old next year, so I ain't doing clubs no more. As much as I had a fun time at the Playboy Mansion, I'm not doing the clubs anymore. Um, yeah, my Instagram is at James Swanwick. You spell my last name Swanwick, so it's spelled Swanwick, pronounced with a silent W, Swanwick. You can send me a DM there. You can also email me at james@alcoholfreelifestyle.com. That's probably the best place to reach me. And then you can also just go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com, and there's some, if you want to have a conversation with one of my coaches about possibly exploring getting some support stopping drinking, you can also connect with us there.
Incredible. Guys, we'll have all that plugged down there in the show notes. Last and final question, James. We'd love to end here with the same question for all of our guests. Obviously, the title of the show is called The Superhuman Life. So, running consistent with that theme and everything we talked about here today, how would Mr. Swanwick define living a superhuman life?
Doing what you want, how you want, with who you want. That's true freedom. And the way to get to the true freedom is to focus on health, wealth, love, and happiness. And the biggest catalyst for that in my own life is letting go of the attractively packaged poison that we call alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, love it. If today's message rang true with you, guys, reach out to James, reach out to myself. We have tons of guys in our community that while getting off of porn, make the decision to remove alcohol out of their life. It was very instrumental for me back in 2019. I went 18 months, James. Now I've introduced it back to my life, and you're challenging me here today. You know, I'm not a hardcore drinker, but I'll have, you know, a drink here and there. But continue to have these conversations, continue to be challenged myself, because I did live 18 months absolutely alcohol free, and it was some of the best times of my life. But if you guys are out there and you want to connect with James, a lot of this stuff to plug down there. If you want to get involved in our communities and find some other guys that are on multiple missions to improving their lives, reach out to me. Join our brand new free school community at school.com/the rebuilt man. But for James, myself, Coach Frank Rich, we love you guys. Make sure to share this one, rate, review, get across all the platforms. But we will see you in the next one. God bless you guys. Love you.